There is a lot of response to that IG report yesterday. Let's start with this. FBI Chief James Comey is defending himself against that Inspector General report, calling him insubordinate in his handling of the Clinton email investigation. Comey saying he did what he thought was best for the FBI and the Justice Department. Here's what he tweeted. He said, quote, "The conclusions are reasonable. Even though I disagree with some, people of good faith can now see an unprecedented situation differently. I pray no director faces it again." The report says that Comey's action damaged the Bureau's reputation for impartiality, and it wasn't only Comey. The report also laying out a long list of mistakes made by other people involved in the investigation. For more, let's bring in attorney Emily Compagno. She is in Seattle with us this morning, and former prosecutor Vinoo Varghese. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
All right,
Good morning.
Emily, let's start with James Comey. You know, look, I mean, he was fired by President Trump. He's written a book. He's far removed now. And really, this report is just an overview, and it didn't make any criminal referrals to Comey or anybody else except for Andrew McCabe. So from a legal perspective, what do you think this report can do moving forward? Are there any other prosecutions, do you think, coming?
Likely no. And just to focus on Comey for a second, you know, the players in this report are being referred for internal disciplinary measures, right? We heard that from Christopher Wray. He said, we're referring this to OPR. And OPR really is bound by precedents and a table of offenses and penalties that really sets out very clearly and very precisely what levels of discipline could happen. Now, that's a preponderance of the evidence, so it's kind of an easy standard to overcome. But at the same time, the most we expect for Comey is a slap on the wrist, especially because he was already fired. Now, his was the most damning in terms of the language, right? The IG called it extraordinarily insubordinate, and especially in sharp contrast to, as you said, McCabe, where they said, look, his failure to recuse himself, that was within policy, even though we recommend changing that policy. Note, however, it's a lot of congressmen that are saying this isn't enough, and the IG is set to testify before them on Monday. So I do think that there will be a lot more questions raised, and those in the report subject to possibly more harsh consideration come Monday.
So maybe more discipline within the FBI, but not necessarily any more criminal matters, again, except for Andrew McCabe. Vinoo, I want to ask you about that, something that she just brought up, and the fact that obviously this has been deeply politicized since the IG report was fully published. Listen to Christopher Wray talking about his take on the IG report, and then Trey Gowdy's response. Listen to this.
Nothing in this report impugns the integrity of our workforce as a whole.
And Chris Wray, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Chris, there are consequences. The consequences are that your fellow citizens question whether or not they can have confidence in the world's premier law enforcement agency.
Vinoo, you're a former prosecutor. Consequences, what does that mean?
Well, I think it has to do with public trust. I mean, this report is like Solomon splitting the baby, right? No side is happy. You have for the Republicans, a sort of indication that Comey was irresponsible and incredibly insubordinate. But for the Democrats, you have a vindication that the Hillary Clinton email probe was handled. It wasn't affected by Comey's ego and problems. But this really speaks really more badly of Comey, because it shows that Comey's ego, he placed his ego above that of protocols and policies. It was Comey who felt that he alone, just when President or then candidate Trump said at the Republican National Convention that only he could fix America, only Jim Comey could fix the DOJ. And that's the problem, was that he wasn't a prosecutor when he was acting as the head of the FBI, when he said no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case. And he should have deferred to Loretta Lynch at that point.
Yeah, I also want to ask you about this, Emily. These FBI agents that received improper gifts from reporters, they leaked information about the investigation to these reporters from their phones, their FBI phones. I mean, the IG actually, that's something new that I did not know was actually happening. Well, there's a couple of bombshells in this report.
I agree, and I think that's in part why FBI Director Wray was so clear in his statement that he's kind of pushing them. He said, look, they're outliers, right? And we are dealing with them accordingly. Now, he did refer to the fact that they're internal personnel matters, so he really couldn't talk about it with specifics, but we got enough specificity in that report. And again, for that referral for discipline, for those agents that remain with the agency right now, they are facing more likely adverse actions, which means suspension, possibly termination over, for example, again, Comey that was already fired. So I do see there that likely the discipline measures will be huge for them.
Almost out of time, Vinoo, but I do want to give you final word here really quick. These 5 unnamed FBI employees, there was a lot of bias, a lot of messages, text messages from these employees. But is that anything that you can prosecute?
No, it's unlikely because, look, these people are human beings. They're entitled to their own opinions, and the report clearly spells out that it didn't affect the ultimate conclusions. But, you know, again, it makes it look bad. As a law enforcement official, you're supposed to avoid the appearance of impropriety. When you act in a certain way that's not consistent with how the department should be viewed, well, then there should be discipline.
All right. Emily and Vinoo, thank you so much. I know it was a very large report. Appreciate your perspective on it this morning. A lot of bombshells in it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.